you got to get through the layers of like the parents, the false, or the what do I call it? The whatever, the belief that more ice, more skill is going to get you there. That's how we're going to get it. It's not true. You have to understand the game or a role. So what I think one of the biggest things that is detrimental to hockey, excuse me, is there's, and this is the topic, right? Is there's too much skill work. And what I mean by that is there's too much skill work that you're not really working on skill. Like, people like to use the word development and skill building and all this stuff, or else you'll never play. And it's very true to a certain degree. But what I find is that there's a lot of teaching that has nothing to do with the game. So a lot of time is spent with your head down, going through pylons or going through, let's use PEP for example. I'm not discrediting it or anything. I'm just saying, like, for me, if you say that's how you make a hockey player, it's like, when, like, it'll make a someone do an obstacle or a pattern faster, better, quicker, which is not necessarily bad, but it doesn't. That so this, in my opinion, that's where I think people, when they play hockey, you look at a practice player and you go, like, he's so good, how come he doesn't do it in a game? That's the question.
We get that question.
How does he? How come he doesn't do it in a game?
Yeah, all the time.
Because in a game, you don't start in the corner and have 4 different stations to keep your head down and stick handle, stick your puck through, jump over something, come back, do 25 different turns and stuff, and shoot without a purpose. That's a drill. That's a skill drill, which is fine, but you got to be able to do that. No, the game is not about that. Only a small part of the game is that. So that's what I tell players. We work on this skill. Let's say it is a stick handling thing. We're going to work on this for 5 hours over the next couple months, or over the next few years, 40 hours or whatever, to use it for a split second, once or twice a year. Do you need to? Yeah, that's important. Like a toe drag, let's say. A toe drag is, you don't want toe dragging all over the ice, but there are times and places where toe drag, or the mechanics of a toe drag, applies to a game of hockey. Like, for example, you say toe dragging, like, what is it? It's a weight transfer. It's pulling the puck in. So that could be like scooping a puck from a pile. If you don't know how to transfer your weight properly, then that doesn't execute properly and you can't get the shot off. It's not, I would never show a toe drag so you can toe drag people, because it doesn't happen very often. It's not your best option. So my point is that when we do development is about playing hockey, not individual. So that's what I find is you get a lot of people working their individual thing, not understanding the game of hockey. So why do you get a good practice player? Because they practice well. They're doing something that they're comfortable with. There's no necessarily a challenge on. There's no pressure. There's no decision making.
Decision making. Yeah.
So all you have to decide is how fast, or if you need to slow down at this pylon, or the puck's bobbling or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're not learning how to play the game, and I think that's the biggest gap in development. Period. That's what I think.
Okay, so this is great. So now I'm going to go back to the kind of AA to AAA differences now. So because back to this parent conversation I was overhearing, there was just like concern. Like, if you're not at the AAA level now when you're 11, 12, like, just from their perspective, then you are going to fall behind. Like, that is what it seemed like the consensus of the conversation was. I just heard it in passing for a few, like, not even 30 seconds, but I heard enough of it where I was like, it seemed like everyone was kind of in agreement. Like, if you don't make this jump at this time, you will be behind. So to me, I had, like, just a quick story here, just to give you a little more of a breather too. I was watching a U18 team on the weekend, and, like, these are U18 hockey players, right? So these are guys that would be, they're 16-year-olds, they're 17-year-olds on this team. They did not understand how to execute basic, like, hockey decision making. Like, they couldn't recognize when certain things were happening in the game that they need to do. For example, I had them, I was watching them. They're trying to implement a 1-2-2 because I know the coach. They're trying to implement a 1-2-2 in their neutral zone, and the coach is saying to me, like, these guys, they can't identify how to get into this 1-2-2 in the neutral zone. At the U18 level, like, I would expect you go in there and you say to them, hey, 1-2-2. And everyone's like, okay, you don't even need to show it on the board. It's like, we know, you would think. So my point of bringing that up is, now that they're at, like, the 16, 17-year-old level, and all of them have been to the pep skates, all of them have been to the skill coach, all of them have been to, because these are all AAA level, AA level players at minimum. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, no one's ever taught them how to play hockey. Like no one has ever taught them in the game, like, what are you supposed to be thinking? Like, what are you supposed to be looking at? Like, how do you weigh the options of what to do? Like, they just don't have these skills, right? So my question from that is, a lot of times I think the default thinking pattern and going to kind of these parents that we're talking is, so because if they don't make this jump to AAA now, they're going to be so far behind. And if they go to AAA, they're going to get more ice. They're going to get more reps. They're going to get more this, more this, more this, more this. And that seems to be what a lot of people think the difference is. What a lot of people think that difference is going to be, like, they need to be on the ice more. They need to be working on their skating more. They need to be working on, and I don't think they're correctly identifying the problem. Where from my perspective, I'm looking at it just like, these guys do not know how to execute a hockey thing in the game. All of them can handle the puck fine. Everybody can shoot fine, right? Some of them are better skaters than others.
10 and 2s.
Yeah, right.
They're
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. Right?
Everyone can do a 10 and 2 now.
So my, I guess,
And I love it. And it's good.
To put that
Sometimes.
into put that into a question, I guess, is like, do you think it's more a function, if we talk about the difference between AA to AAA, or this could even scale to like between AAA centers too, I guess. Do you think it turns into a function of coaching more than just the ability of the players? Like, back to your demographics point, do you think just like some of the players are just going to get it and be better earlier? And if you're in a big center, there's more likely to be more of those guys, and that kind of makes up the difference? Or do you think, like, for example, in our area, like, the coaching is just so poor that there's a million skills coaches, there's a million people doing cones, but we're lacking people that can actually teach the game part of hockey? So if speaking for like just our area, maybe, is that what's lacking, versus do you think it's more just the demographic thing again? Or where do you see like that gap in why there's a difference? Like, what do you think about those things?
She's loaded, eh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's loaded. No, there's a lot.
Yeah.
So first of all, I want to just go back to something. You said, if you don't get to a certain AAA at a certain level, you might as well, it's a burger flip now, right? See you later. Well, one of our former customer of mine is Matt Martin. So he never played one game of AAA in his life, and he just played his 900th NHL game the other day. I look at around the OHL, and I don't know if these kids never played AAA, but they were like, I know London just put a couple guys that they have roles. They have a role. They do it well. It's not, and a lot of people say, well, where'd they play? They get a U18 guy that was a later guy or whatever. It's like, it happens on not every team, but like many teams have like late picks, late guys that he wasn't that good. Like, you wouldn't think he was that good. It's like they figured out hockey. See, people think that, and this is the biggest thing, is people think that hockey is exactly the skill part, but that's like one part. What happens is, like, if we just go back to levels again, every level you play, there's a huge gap. Okay. So like, it shouldn't really be a surprise to someone that there's a gap in Pee Wee or U12 AAA to AA. It shouldn't be a shock. So because you look at the National Hockey League is like the highest level that you can ever play at. The gap between that and the American Hockey League is humongous. Humongous. Now, are there players that maybe it's a contract thing, or it's like a salary cap thing, or the team's deep and it's like that kid probably could play on 4 different other teams on a 4th line, 3rd line, or whatever his role is, but this team just can't. Yes, there's that, but the gap of an NHL player to an American League player or East Coast player is humongous. And then the OHL or college to the NHL or American League, there's a gap. So like, I was talking to a couple parents the other day about, like, because like, people have the dream of playing the NHL, and it's fantastic, yes, of course. But like, arguably one of the best defensemen in the OHL last year was Ethan Del Mastro. So I was telling a couple parents that. I said, so like, would you guys say like he was one of the best D, like probably the best D? I mean, whatever you consider the best, but like, he would be the top couple D. He was a drafted 2nd or 3rd or 4th round to Chicago, played on the World Junior team, Would he be one of the best D in the OHL? They're like, oh yeah, for sure. I said, okay, guys, he's not in the NHL yet. He was the best that you've seen, and he was a dominant D, like dominant. He knew how to grab a puck and never get hit, ever, hardly ever. And he was physically strong, and he could put points up and carry the puck just so calm. He's not in the NHL yet, so that's the gap. He was the best that you've ever seen. He's not in the NHL yet. That's huge. So then the kids that go from midget to junior B to junior OJ or whatever, junior A to the OHL, Canadian Hockey League, whatever you want to call it, like the gaps are huge. The gaps are huge. So it shouldn't be a shocker. Like it's just as you get older and the leagues get better, that funnel just gets skinnier and skinnier. It's hard to, so that's where understanding how to play hockey. And this is where people fall through the cracks as they get older, is not understanding that there's a role. There's roles for players to play, and it's like huge. So when you have someone that has worked on skill, which is necessary, then the best skilled guy, if we're going on the skill theory, gets you to the NHL, would play in the NHL. So that means you got the hardest shot, quickest hands, most agility, can skate through people, but that's just not the way the game is played. So the kids that figure out, or the parents, or the culture that they're in, can explain to them in a good way that you're a very, very important person on our team, even though you're not going to get 35 goals. That you do this role and you do it well, and teach them as they move up how important it is to play a complete game. All those different things. That's when you're going to start seeing kids that have skill. If they could put the commitment into learning the game or learning a role, then that's where you're going to have a better hockey player. So it's like there's a whole lot of different ways to do this. They're not to do this. Like you got to get through the layers of like the parents, the false, or the what do I want to call it? The whatever, the belief that more ice, more skill is going to get you there. That's how we're going to get it. It's not true. You have to
Yeah.
understand the game or a role.
And I think it's like there's a fundamental like lack of understanding on what the problem is.
And I
You
get
know?
it. I get
Yeah.
it. And I get people, like as parents, I think this is the biggest thing, is to understand that the fear of missing out is not, it's just not there. It doesn't need to be there. Like, so I'm going to use a player for an example that because it's so close to me. I was just at their house. So on the Guelph Storm, there's Matt Patras, right? So he had 95 assists last year as a 18-year-old kid, drafted second round in Boston. So looks like we're probably not going to get him back this year. If we do, it's like winning the lottery. He got called up to the NHL. He's in it. We're gonna find out if we get him back or not. So the argument, and his dad and I were like buddies, so I can say this. His knock was that, like, from day one, from what I heard from people, agents and other people, is he can't skate. So was one of my arguments. I said, who cares? Well, if you can't skate, you can't play. Oh yeah? Why? Why? If you're smart, if you know how to make plays, you can play, right? It's just one thing. So his appearance is that he's got a little bit of a lean, and it looks like he's going to get his head taken off. That was early. He's changed it a little bit, but he's might be the smartest player I've ever seen. Not ever, but like he's up there. Honestly, he's up there. So he was getting knocked for the first 2 years that Charlie played with him. And he's got his head down, but it's not down. Like, so and maybe it looks down, but his eyeballs are out. So he's seeing everything. His first year, did he take a few hits? Yeah. Okay. But what did he do for skill development? He wasn't on I mentioned a couple names, and his dad's like, who? These are skill, like the gurus, because he didn't know. His kid played lacrosse in the off season, and I'm sure he trained, but he's got a brain for hockey, and his elite playmaking is incredible. So he didn't do way more ice. He played a ton of lacrosse. So you've seen Matt play. It looks like he gets himself in trouble sometimes, and he's got 3-4 people around him, and then he just skills it out. But part of that was he's able to absorb. And the other knock on him, he's not that big. He's 5'11", 185, let's say. He's gonna get killed. He's too smart. So through his lacrosse, he's learned how to weave in and out of the traffic and hang on to the ball, the puck, whatever it is. And while doing that, he's sucking people in. He's doing it on purpose to create openings and feed a pass, and it's like they're at the end of the night 3 points. So he gets to the NHL where everybody has now his brain is elite, and now he's everyone that said he can't do it. Well, now he can because now he's playing with a bunch of brainiacs, right? So like that's a thing. It's like he didn't do it because he was on the ice more. He had a brain. He
Yeah.
understood the game, and it's like that's the key part to this.